So anyway, if people are settled, so far I've done basically the basic stuff that you can do through Maya's interface. I've applied an IK handle, I've done some bones. These are all through sort of the basic tools that it gives you. I'm going to kind of go behind the scenes now and do some stuff with the graph. Because while Maya, as a package, works a lot to try to convince you that you're just manipulating this stuff in the scene, in fact, the way Maya sees itself is as this graph of nodes being calculated, and ultimately, if you want to do much with Maya, you end up having to interact with it on that level as a node graph. It has basically a bunch of information being piped between these various nodes that do various things to it. And you end up having to sort of ignore the parts where Maya tries to hide that from you and pretend that that's not actually what's happening, and you're just moving objects around in the scene. Although, of course, a lot of the time you are just moving objects around in the scene. If you're animating, you're not dealing with a node graph, or hopefully you're not. That would be a very odd way to go about animating. But certainly when you're rigging, that's basically what you spend most of your time doing. So in this case, I need to, if I want to take this curve and I want to basically figure out how to make these bones move in such a way as to stretch the length of the curve, I am going to have to find out what the length of that curve is. And Maya has a node that does that. That node is in Maya's long list of various kinds of nodes. A lot of these are texture nodes, but we don't care about them right now. We actually only care about the utilities, because that's the stuff that people tend to use for rigging. And each of these nodes does something that is useful for a variety of things. Some of them are really basic math nodes, like plus minus average. You probably figure out what that one does. It takes a number and it adds another number. We will actually be using that. Things like set range, where you take a range of numbers and sort of crunch them into something else, or basically your unit conversion. I mean, there are a variety of nodes that you're likely to use. Basically, these utility nodes that basically do sort of general things. Blend colors is actually a really common one to use in rigging, even though it was originally written as a shader node. It's called blend colors. But actually, it blends 3 values of any kind. And that could be RGB, or it could be XYZ. Maya doesn't actually care. To the degree that Maya actually follows its own rules, which is actually sometimes kind of surprising, the degree to which Maya doesn't follow its own rules, but to the degree that it does, this is kind of its power. The nodes don't care where the information is coming from and where it's going. They just do what they do, which means that you can use them in ways that the designers never really anticipated. For instance, the blend colors node is obviously made to blend colors. I mean, if I just add a blend colors node, just to show you kind of what it does, it's got 2 places where you can put in what they imagined was going to be RGB information, and then a blender control that tells you how far you're going to one and how far you're going to the other. But this is something that's incredibly useful in rigging. And the fact that this was originally intended as a shading node didn't prevent people from going and taking it and using it in their rigs and all over, and to do all kinds of stuff in Maya. Even though that wasn't its original intention, and really, the designers, I imagine, really had no idea that's what people were going to use it for. But the node that I want is a curve info node. And what this node does is to get the information of basically how long the curve is. Now, the one thing that is unfortunate, however, about Maya's node graph is that it is often not especially easy to go about figuring out what you're supposed to hook up to what. And in this case, if I were to go look at all of the attributes on this curve info node, which I can show you sort of all the stuff that's available to it if I go into the channel control box. This is, and I look at all of these. You know what? They don't include it in the channel. That's funny. Most nodes do, but look, I mean, we work up something else now. I will go get the connection editor. So one of the things that I could theoretically do would be to go get curve 1 and use it as my input, and blend colors 1 and use it as my output, or rather use it as where I'm putting my input into. And obviously, oh sorry, not blend colors, what am I thinking? Curve info. Reload right. And obviously what curve info wants is input curve. But let's look at curve 1. Which one of these goes into input curve? It is not necessarily easy to tell. And in fact, I can't even remember off the top of my head. Luckily, there are easier ways of dealing with this. Although I actually am rather curious. I'm just going to run through this. World Matrix is not going to begin, but I might be able to actually figure out which one of these is supposed to connect in there. No, I don't remember. Well, anyway, one of these does, but I have no idea which one. So, instead of going and trying to connect these up by hand, I'm going to use a handy bit of metal, which hopefully I can also remember.